We return now to the ground in the Middle East. Palestinians inside the Gaza Strip are finally able to return to their homes and assess the fallout. Meanwhile, key aid organizations serving the most vulnerable people there are debilitated by damage at the point where there's the greatest demand for relief. Joining me now, Steve Sosebee, president and founder of the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, and Carl Skembry, media advisor in the Middle East for the Norwegian Refugee Council. Carl, tell us how tonight has contrasted from the past week and a half of bombardment, and how have the past 24 hours been for the people of Gaza surveying the damage and your team on the ground?
Well, it's been a massive sigh of relief for all the Palestinians inside the besieged Gaza Strip. They are relieved. They have survived this onslaught. For those who are still around, it's a big sigh of relief, of course. For my colleagues, it was a day to catch up on the sleep, on the lost sleep that they've had, getting some rest. But it's been a terrifying 11 days that they've been through. And today was the time to celebrate that they're still alive, they're still around, to mourn, to grieve for all that's lost. It was their first chance to really mourn in the silence, not being under the bombs, and to catch up on sleep, literally. A lot of my colleagues really needed to rest a bit, and now the big work starts as of tomorrow.
Steve, we know that at least 66 children died in the Gaza Strip during this round of airstrikes. The World Health Organization says there are more than 200,000 people there in need of mental health support. That is about 1 in 10. What does it do to the mental health of children to grow up and live in an environment like this, some of them 21 years old, having survived now 4 wars in Gaza?
Well, thank you, Ayman. I think our studies indicate that number is much higher than 200,000. You're talking about a population of Gaza, which is just over 2 million people, and half of those are children. Roughly half of the population are children. And these are children and a population in general that are being exposed every single day since the occupation began in 1967, but particularly since the first Intifada, nearly every single day being exposed to use of high ordnance weapons in highly populated areas. And the impact that this has on children, and we've seen that, is a high level of stress, anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's important to remember post-traumatic stress disorder came about as a result of soldiers coming back from experiencing combat in wars in Europe and in the Pacific and in Vietnam. And it is a terrible mental health infliction. But for children in the Gaza Strip who have to experience every single day homes being bombed, their friends and neighbors and relatives being killed, and their entire communities under siege, the long-term impact that has on the population there, and again, I believe it's much higher than 200,000, is that these children can't concentrate in school. They regress. You have teenagers who are now wetting the bed, who are becoming very aggressive, who can't study very well in school, and who are not growing up in a normal environment. And of course, Gaza is under occupation, under siege. It's not a normal environment to begin with, but having this impact on their development, on their mental health development, makes it extremely hard, if not impossible, for organizations like ours to come and have a positive intervention. Nonetheless, we have programs in place for mental health support for these kids, and we're hoping that if the cause of their post-traumatic stress, which is the continuing bombing of the Gaza Strip, stops, then there can be a real intervention that helps to improve their lives and resolve this mental health issue.
So I know that, unfortunately, Steve, your offices, your building was destroyed and damaged as a result of the strike there. What more can you tell us about that, and how does that hamper the treatment of those children that you're trying to provide for? How will your work be affected? Can you still provide care for the children of Gaza?
Yeah, so on Monday, our building in the center of Gaza City was hit by an airstrike. We're across the street by chance of the Ministry of Health. It seems that was the main target, not our building. But our building was completely destroyed and our offices were completely destroyed. However, that doesn't stop us. Since then, we've done several distributions of humanitarian aid and supplies, including food, to people who've been left homeless as a result of the bombings or have sought shelter outside of their homes and are suffering from food insecurity. We did a distribution of food today and medical supplies for the hospitals since our office has been destroyed. We're a grassroots interventional organization. We work in the field. It's terrible that our offices were destroyed, unacceptable, but it's not going to impact our ability to deliver direct aid to people in need, bring doctors in, take kids out for medical care, and provide other types of humanitarian services directly to the people. We're going to continue. It's not going to impact us beyond the fact that we no longer have an office currently to work out of. But our team are dedicated.
Yeah.
They're brave. And they will be continuing to work in the field every single day.
Carl, I know that there were 11 children that NRC was treating for trauma that died as a result of this. How do you ultimately treat the children of Gaza who are living cycle after cycle of war?
Indeed, it's been actually, we've confirmed there's a 12th girl who was also killed, 10-year-old Dima from Jabalia camp. That just adds to the toll of victims. How do we work with them? We work with them on a daily basis because, as Steve was saying, the siege is a daily trauma for these children. When there isn't this escalation, when Gaza isn't in the media, it is still a very terrifying experience to live in the Gaza Strip. Gaza is no place for children to live in under the Israeli occupation, under the Israeli imposed siege. And it is a very violent experience that they have to go through every day. And we do these exercises, these programs, this counseling in schools. We reach thousands of children where we teach them how to cope through breathing exercises, how to do meditation, how to speak about what they're going through.
Right.
What this escalation does is that it reopens the wound and puts us back to square one, having to start all over again. And the siege itself is a traumatic experience. So as long as that siege exists, as long as the occupation of Palestine exists, there is going to be this problem. And we're going to be speaking in 2-3 years' time about another escalation.
I hope we can continue this conversation, keep the spotlight on this. In fact, the UN Secretary General said if there's hell on earth, it is the lives of the children in Gaza. Carl Schembri, Steve Sosebee, thank you very much for joining us with that perspective.